and I'm very, very proud to announce drum beats for training with Indian clubs, Mace and Persian Meals. And I just thought I'd make a video to introduce you to the concept and basically a little bit of background information about how this all came about. Excuse me. And you know, just a little bit of history. So the idea basically comes from the Zulkarnain in Persia or modern day Iran. It's very ancient, and it's it's stood the test of time, if you like. Now, I originally used to try and use tracks from iTunes, from various musicians and so on, and I found that some tracks were really, really good, and the beat was continuous, so you could swing all the way through a track. And other times the track speeds changed because of the way that the song was written and whatever, and you suddenly found yourself like floundering. And I really didn't like that. So I wanted continuous beats. In came my iPad, and I suddenly found myself looking for, well, can I create it? There was also a problem with YouTube, in the sense that you had, copyright infringements, and sort of you'd get a smack across the wrist because you were using somebody's music and you didn't have the rights to do it. So I went down the obvious track. I have to find a way of being able to put tracks up on my videos. That's one, and something that YouTube are going to be happy with. So that's how this was born. And influenced by the Zulkarnain and their drum, which is called the Zarb, Z-A-R-B, I started producing tracks. And first of all, it was just very simple loops that I made, and that would just play over and over and over and over. And as time went on, I learned to make them better. And the tracks that are on this album have various speeds or beats per minute. To listen to these tracks, it's best if you can download them and put them into iTunes on your phone or another media form of player. And you need some form of a speaker, Bluetooth or whatever, or a sound system so that you can listen to it and work with it. So that's basically the setup. Now, just a quick concept. The history of the drums. The drums, as I said earlier on, are very ancient. They were used by Persian and Roman armies for marching, and I believe for training, but I'm not 100% sure about that. It was a form of communication. It was a form of communication during battle, when they were during wars, and it was also a form of communication for transportation. So people would be marching, or the armies would be marching, carrying their shields and swords and so on, and they would travel. And the Romans were particularly good at that. I mean, they built amazing roads, and they could travel from one point to another really, really quickly. And basically that was a marching, drumming type of situation. Now, just coming many years forward, between 1860 and 1930, Indian clubs were at its height of popularity. And just to sort of paint a little bit of a picture here, people would probably go to church on Sunday. After the service, everybody would crowd into the church hall, be it large or small, and it would be a social event. And somebody would sit down at the piano, start playing waltzes, and you'd have a group form of training of Indian club swinging, which would last maybe half an hour or so on. And sometimes the women did it on their own, sometimes the men, sometimes the children, depending on the size of the place. So it was very much a social event. Club swinging was a social event in those days. And then going further from that, around about the sort of the turn, 1900 into 1901 and so on, endurance club swinging came into being. One of the sort of biggest champions of that was Tom Burrows, an Australian. And in 1913, he performed 107 hours of non-stop club swinging under medical and military supervision, and a lot of that was done with the military band playing in the background, and he kept time with it. Now, so let's move on. How to start with this? The tracks are basically done in different speeds. There's the slowest one is at 45 beats per minute. And then the next one's up at 55 beats a minute, 56, 57, 58, 59 and 60. Now, what I wanted to sort of just go through with you very, very quickly, and I'm going to put some drumming on now, and I'm going to put a track on at 56 beats per minute. And now what we want to do is to feel the beat. One of the best ways of doing that is to swing pendulums. So we'll just put a track on, and we'll swing some pendulums. So basically you can start like this. Have the clubs hanging down. Your third finger should be on the pommel. And just literally swing the clubs. Just feel the beat. And close your eyes and swing up as far as you can and feel the beat. Okay. So this is at 56 beats per minute. Now I'm going to put on a track that's faster. So we'll just reselect the track and we'll go to 60 beats a minute. So you can see from here now, it's quite a bit quicker. So I can feel the clubs really pulling on my shoulders now. So, you know, you can select a track basically in different speeds, and I have a list of tracks now that you can follow. Each track has a number beside it, so if you see 55, that means 55 beats per minute, and each track has a name to clarify which one it is. Now, so further on, so I mean, if you could start with pendulums, if you're new to Indian clubs. If you're a little bit advanced and you can swing a combination, for example, like a front circle and a back circle, which is called a heart shape, then you can, we'll go to another speed of track now. And let's say we'll go to 58, a little bit slower. So now, I'm just going to do the pendulum swing again. You can see that this is a little bit more gentle. Now, circles and combinations. So front circle, back circle, front circle, back circle. Breathing in, going up. Breathing out, coming down. So as you can see, I mean, you can keep time with the music, which is really fun to do. We'll just stop that one there for a minute. Now, I want to give you a little bit of a tip here. Every time your hands go up overhead, holding the clubs, you should be breathing in because your complete rib cage and chest opens up, and you breathe out on the way down. So with a heart shape is breathing in, coming up to here, coming down, breathing out. In, out. Okay, so that's a little bit of a tip. Now, the other thing is that's very important is that you do use 1 pound or 2 pound clubs. Do not try going heavier. There's no macho stuff to be done here because, and I'll tell you why, as opposed to say kettlebell lifting or bar work, you're relying on the skeletal side of things. So when you get to the end of the movement, it's the skeletal support that you're relying on to hold it into place. And there's a compression factor here. Now with Indian clubs, it's absolutely the reverse. You're swinging a circle, so you're not relying so much on the skeletal support, and because the clubs are swinging away and across the body, you're actually having a decompression in all your joints here. So that's very important, and for that purpose, a 1 pound or a 2 pound club is absolutely ideal. until you get more experienced, and then we can talk about that later on. Okay, now a little bit more about the tracks. Each of the drum tracks is 10 minutes long. Now that idea came from Girovoy Sport, where you do the 10-minute sets, which I think is a brilliant idea, and I decided to use that in my own training, which I've done over the years. And a 10-minute set doing heart shapes is very challenging. So again, you start at 55, 56, and you work your way through speed-wise to build up, to see how you're going. And it's very challenging to do a 10-minute set non-stop. I'm not talking about doing anything else. I mean, basically that's what you do. You have a clock in front of you and you watch the clock face. Now what does happen is that fatigue starts to set in. You get tired. And as you get tired, more tired, it becomes more and more challenging to carry on swinging. And the idea is to keep time with the music. You know, going back to the Roman armies when they're moving through, you know, various terrains going to war. I mean, here you're basically driving yourself to keep up with the tempo of the beats. And that's why there's so many different beats there. So it's fatigue, basically you're fighting fatigue, and you're also challenging yourself for endurance, which I think is great. Now, the track names themselves, there's three categories. There's Indian clubs. Okay. There's the Mace. I've called them Gada Mace. Okay. And finally, I've also included tracks for Persian Meals. These things. Now, all these tracks, I mean, each section has 55 up to 60, with the exception of Indian clubs. In Indian club speeds, there's 8 tracks in Indian club, 6 in the other 2, and the Indian clubs start at 45 beats per minute and they go up to 60, and there's 2 tracks at 60. So there's 8 tracks there. I mean, when I created the tracks, yes, they were specifically created for the Mace, they were specifically created for Indian clubs and the Persian Meals, but you can mix them up. So I mean, you know, basically the idea is enjoy it, and you know, if you find that you like, say, a meal track for Indian clubs, well, go ahead and use it. I mean, there's no rules there in particular. So I think that's basically, that covers it. Enjoy and you know, find your groove. That's the most important thing about all of this, because it's a rhythmic form of exercise. And the whole idea that I had behind this was to produce something that I could swing to. And I've had a lot of requests for these tracks over the years, and I kept thinking, yeah, I've got to do it, got to do it. I actually didn't know how to do it, and then finally I've decided that when I came back after my trip this year to Europe and the US, is to actually finish it off once and for all and get it done. So I hope you enjoy the tracks. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly do, I'm going to choose 3 tracks. I'm going to do like a minute with Indian clubs, a minute with the Mace, and a minute with Meals. And I'll choose and tell you which speeds that I'm working with. So with Indian clubs, we'll start with, let's just go back to here. We'll go to 57. The track is called Hammer, and here we go. So that's the hammer track, 57 beats a minute. Okay, so let's do something for the Mace. So the Mace, we'll go for a track called Honor at 58 beats a minute. Okay. And for Persian Meals, I'm going to go to a track called TIRELESS, which is 59 beats a minute. So let's start with that one. Okay, so basically that gives you an outline of how I arrived at this and how it was created, a little bit of history, and then a few swings to try it out. Now folks, I would love to see you using these tracks and you know, see some of your videos and so on, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube or whatever platform, even Instagram. And I'd love you to comment and request. I mean, you know, from my point of view, I found that the tracks 55 to 60 beats per minute were enough. But if there's some of you out there who find that too fast, for example, let me know. You know, I mean, I'd love to hear from you and love to hear your comments. So in saying that, enjoy drum beats for training with Indian clubs, Mace and Persian Meals. My name is Wolkowinski, and I'll see you in the next video.